Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. We are here with Dr. Jennifer Baker and a special guest as we move forward the new year of 2025. Yes. We introduce a topic called Hot Topics.
Hot Topics.
With Will Cox.
Yes.
So welcome.
I think Will Cox is going to be a regular on Hot Topics. I'm not sure what that says about you, Will.
Depending on how good it goes. So we'll let you know after. No.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and thereby tell everybody else.
Yeah. Will Cox, live in Springfield, Missouri. We've got two boys, Liam and Chandler. They're 10 and 11 and complete polar opposites. CEO of a solar company and husband to Jenny, who's my best friend and allows me to cover up when I'm not such a good dad. So, mediocre dad trying to be good. So
yeah,
she helps fill in the gaps.
So I'm wondering, is one of those boys more like you?
Yeah. Yeah. The oldest Liam is a lot more like me. Chandler is very sweet, very empathetic, doesn't care about winning and losing, and Liam is much more like me, a little neurotic, emotional, insecure, and just kind of all over the place. So bipolar, I think, is what you would call it in your line of work.
Oh, well, I'd be careful of that.
He's much more like me.
So you guys butt heads?
Yeah, love it. Yeah. You could say that. So he's 11. So I'm just now getting to the point where I'm 75% of a moron, and the older that we're getting ready to hit that stage.
Yeah, you're entering the stupid stage.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So
is that a scientific stage? Is that
what we might call it something more scientific?
What chapter was that? I don't remember that.
It's called adolescence, but it definitely has an impact on how young people view their parents. So
yeah. I went to actually had got to volunteer at their field trip today over at the ice rink. You can just see that line at 10. Chandler's really excited to see me and comes up, gives me a hug, and Liam kind of stays away, knows how I am. So we were in charge of putting balloons inside pantyhose. He had to make reindeer hat out of it. So don't be misconstrued. I'm an adult male trying to put pantyhose on at Christian school, but you put the balloons in there, you put it over your head. So I seek him out, and I'm like, "Hey, Liam's dad. Liam, I know you. I know you." So there's a reason that he probably thinks I'm an idiot. Quite close. I am.
You're entering that phase where I've known when they're about 14 or 15, they want people to think that they occurred as a result of the Immaculate Conception.
Yep. That's it.
Their parents never really conceived them.
Right.
And I know one young person who did not want his mother to come to the football team. The band was marching, and he was afraid that people would know that she was his mother when he was down on the field marching in a uniform. So, yeah, go figure. You could go there. Oh.
But, we talk a lot about this and, good dads, and we talked about this on the podcast just a little bit ago. Being vulnerable is a good thing, because when I first heard the word good dad, I'm like, I don't think I could ever be in that club. Yeah. I'm like, is this just some kind, you're bragging? You're like, there's some elite club that think they're the best dads in all of the land. But I think that you hit upon something where you're just kind of vulnerable and you kind of have fun with it. I think that's a really important part of being a good dad, just to lead by example, to just have a little fun with it. Yeah,
there's not a book for it. I mean, just trying to do your best every day. And most importantly, being there is, just like college. I mean, half the battle just showing up. It's no different than being a dad, just being there. And, if you make a mistake, at least you're there. And more importantly, you're able to say, hey, sorry, and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Prime Inc., Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Susan Biney, Midwest Auto Source, Merrill, a Bank of America company, Central Assembly, D&E Plumbing. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission. So, Will, we're going to be talking to you about some hot topics. And today, specifically, we're going to be focusing on why affection matters in fatherhood. And that can be hard sometimes, where there are some families that really don't talk about their feelings.
And some families that do very little touching. It just, if you grew up in a home where people are not very affectionate, you didn't experience that yourself, then it can feel odd or uncomfortable to be physically affectionate, appropriately to even your children or your spouse.
Yeah.
So, and I know we talk about sometimes where dads in general may not want to talk about feelings. So how do you, before we get started with Will, how do you, as a clinical psychologist, how do you start with that? Like where people are like, we never really talked about my feelings. What would be just a basic suggestion on trying to share what's on your mind?
Well, if I want to know somebody's feelings, then I would be a good listener. So I would say to anybody who's listening and wants to know how their child is feeling, I would start with being a really good listener to what's going on with them and asking good questions. But then I think it's a skill to watch what's going on, to pay attention to what's going on with you. So if I'm meeting with someone and I'm finding myself feeling kind of fidgety or anxious, and I'm thinking something about that person causes me to feel a little anxious. I don't know what it is. Or if I find myself getting impatient and annoyed, like, something about our dynamic here is like, I'm kind of feeling worked up. I have to, paying attention to what's going on in you physically. Like, how does your stomach feel? Are you feeling a little tight in the chest? Are you feeling a little, itchy? Like, I just need to get up and move around. So looking at the physical sensations can give you a clue to what's going on in your head. Does that help? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Even like, and I think about sometimes some of my grandpas and uncles that were very rural, and it was like, shut up and do the work. And that's all we do.
Yeah.
And if there's any type of feelings, when we go out and work it out.
Yeah.
We go work it off, and constantly. So I think sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be like some kind of counseling session between dad and child. I think you put a great way and a good point with that is to ask questions or be a good listener. Sometimes that's all it really takes. Right.
Yeah. And I think if you're really wondering if your child is feeling, let's say, afraid or worried about something, which, men often, the two emotions you will most often see them admit to is I'm happy or I'm mad. Yep. But they have much greater difficulty saying they're sad or they're fearful of something. So you could, talking about vulnerability, you could say, I don't know. I imagine you might be feeling a little worried right now. I feel worried, or I would feel worried if I were in your shoes, or gosh, I feel kind of sad about that. I'm wondering how you feel. So you can do that if you're trying to develop that in your child. You can do that just in life when they tell you about a situation, or you can do that if like you're reading a book together when they're young. Or you're watching a television show and you're like, I wonder, what do you think Mark is feeling right now? Or what do you think that's going on with the character? So those are opportunities to get them to recognize what's going on in them. And that's really good preparation for life.
And I think just asking them, hey, how did that situation in school make you feel? When you saw somebody do that, how did it make you feel? And that's a generational thing. Also, what you're talking about where, hey, we were taught, there's a generational divide where you don't talk about your feelings, you don't cry, you don't show emotions. It's you suck it up, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and you just work. Mm-hmm. And I think now, as these kids are facing pressures with social media, especially, that's not always an option. If you look at the depression rates and as tragic as a school, it's off the charts. Mm-hmm. And the shootings, it's unreal. And a lot of those times, those kids don't have an outlet for their feelings. They might not even know what they're feelings, but they're being told on how they should feel through the outside world. And it's just going to work it off. I mean, it's always a weakness to show your emotions. Well, I feel sad. That's okay. And what did you do? What did it make you feel sad? And how do you do things different? So that's a generational thing. And I think that we have to be better about addressing that, especially with our sons. Hey, you feeling that way is okay. What do you do when you feel that way? And if they, got in trouble or anything like that, what are choices that you could make and make sure they master their emotions?
Yeah, and if they're using those feelings, they should go to theater, right? If they have a lot of emotions, they should act it out on stage. Get it all out.
Some people have a lot more flair for that than others. So,
yeah, I know. I had to get it out on stage. It was a good outlet, But no, that's it's really good points, and I mean I think that just listening is a great tool with some of that. Is there any other ways that I know we talk a lot about this, and you touched upon it a little bit on how you grew up in a different generation. I know that it was a lot different now than it is, and I think that sometimes when people think about counseling and feelings, that it does kind of come with this taboo attached with it, but it's not
have it
really
all together.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to general maintenance, you've lost your mind. Like there's something wrong with you. No, you're trying to be better and be a master of your emotions, not letting them master you.
I think one thing that I would say, there's a lot of talk about depression and anxiety, and I'm just going to say this from the perspective of someone who's seen a fair number of young adults, is that maybe the message that we got, or at least I got in my generation, is like, okay, you're sad, so you're going to get up. In other words, I think was greater permission to express your feelings, but that does not mean inactivity.
Right.
You're sad, but you still need to take action. You're feeling anxious, but the only way to overcome an anxiety disorder is to actually move toward the thing that you're fearful of. And maybe that's a message that we want to make sure we get our young people, is that, yes, let's talk about our feelings, but then let's also realize we have to be brave.
Validating doesn't mean you coddle them. I mean, you're absolutely right. You got to let them know that, hey, you can change the way that you're feeling. You don't have to sit there and sit in it, but it's going to take action on your part.
So how do you avoid coddling your sons? Because you're a dad with 2 boys, and how do you do that?
It can be tough sometimes. How do I avoid coddling them? I tend to just I keep things playful and too surface level sometimes, and I'll kind of brush over it, or they get hurt, suck it up, and just kind of move on from there. And but it's that conversation. I mean, if they express sadness, and I don't handle it in a way that I should have, or if my youngest one, Chandler, is he's much more emotional in terms of tremendous amount of empathy and hurt. So when he bumps his knee on table, or he gets hurt when we're out there playing football, and I say shake it off and just kind of move on with him, it really hurts him. Like it really bothers him because I didn't stop to validate that. So it's tough to do when you want to be tough. You do. You want them to be tough, but also you don't want to just kind of brush away how they're feeling. So it's something that I struggle with, is how do I hey, I see you, I hear you, I'm sorry, let's move forward. And sometimes I'm too nonchalant about it.
So each kid is different.
Oh, yeah.
I mean that, and we talk about that a lot on some of our podcasts, and why affection matters in fatherhood might be different from one child to the other.
Yeah. Well, my oldest one, and for both of them, wrestling was a big deal. You talk about that physical touch. Wrestling as a little kid, I mean, it's something that they love doing, and you can see them do it to each other. Like when one of them starts bumping into each other, and my wife grew up with 2 sisters, and I had 2 younger brothers. When those boys start kind of becoming entangled, that's their way of showing affection to each other. And that's something that we did as kids and was able for us to bond. But my oldest son, it is, I can write him a really long message and on his iPad said, hey, I love you, very proud of you, have a great day, you're the best son ever, blah, blah, blah. And what he sends back is ye, Y-E, because apparently that's a thing. They can't even send a Y-E-S, it's ye. And it pisses up ye. And I'm like, is this why you go to school? To take the S off yes? And that's him, and he doesn't, and it seems on the outside like he doesn't care. He's got and with Chandler, I can send that text and he'll send me a response back, say, you're the best daddy in the world, I love you, more than anything, more like an elf response. And so they are completely different. One, when I try to give Liam a kiss goodnight before we say prayers, he curls away like that, like don't want anything to do with me. So just kind of like a pat on the head. And with Chandler, I get in there and just snuggle him and Daddy loves you. I love you too, Daddy. Like it's so different, but their receiving of both is the same. Their response to me will be different, but they both receive it as love and validation. Ultimately, hey, my dad loves me, and building up their self-worth more than anything is what I'm doing.
Showing affection in different ways.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, I also like the fact that sometimes you let them know they have to toughen up and deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
I think we don't do our kids we don't help our kids. We do them a disservice if we don't let them know that sometimes you just got to tough it up and do it.
Yep.
It's okay not to want to do it or to be afraid of doing it, but you still got to do it.
Yep. And me and my wife, and I've gotten a lot better about this, and we're very fortunate. We send our kids to a private school. We just do. And, at the beginning, when one of them would cry, I'd say something like, I don't want them to be soft private school kids. And it's like nails on a chalkboard, even me saying it now. And, oh, man, it upsets her, as it should. Out there on the football field, because I coach too, and I'm like, one of them's crying, so I'm like, it's private school. It's private, because you want them to be tough. Listen, I don't need judgment from you. Jenny has already verbally beaten me over this.
Are you feeling judged?
Yes.
How are you feeling right now?
It's really my own shame is what I'm saying.
Tell us about your affection and why it matters.
I have daddy issues. No, but you want them. You do. You want them to be tough and kind, and just finding that balance. Hey, how do you? Because the world's going to hit you at some point. You're going to hit in the mouth. How do you get back up, and how do you deal with it? Is ultimately what we're trying to raise great young Christian men that are tough and soft. That lion and lamb that people talk about. Hey, there's times you got to be a lion, times you have to be a lamb, and you have to know that when what is needed.
Well, and I love the reality of it too. Sometimes you think of this as some kind of Good Dads podcast, and we're gonna paint these big rainbows and this beautiful background of how it is to be a great dad, and it's wonderful, and this is what it's going to look like, and our expectations. But the reality is when we walk out these doors and actually do it, it's a lot different than trying to really get mentally prepared about affections or fatherhood in general.
Yeah, and what you said is exactly right, because it's amazing when you go home, you're like, man, kids are in a bad mood. Well, I'm not in a very good mood. What's wrong with them? I'm obviously pissed off about something, and you project it onto everybody around me as a jerk. Oh, well, then, sorry, it's just me and how I'm feeling. So just checking that at the door is so tough. And that's one thing that a lot of us as fathers, being able to take home, and a lot of times we don't take home to work with us. We strip everything off. Hey, it's time to work. It's time to perform. We go at it. But when we get home, it's not as easy to check what we're dealing with there. And the ones that mean the most to us, a lot of times have to deal with that, which is unfortunate. So I think that for me and for a lot of dads is what's crucial. How do I flip that switch? What do I need to do to prepare myself to go home and have a clean slate so I can give them more of me?
Yeah.
So, you have any advice to other dads who struggle with giving affection to their children?
Just tell them you love them.
Yeah.
I mean, just something like that. It's amazing how many kids you hear stories of their dad never told them that you love them, and you're proud of them.
Yeah, I think
love
that
you.
second part is really
Proud of you.
Yeah.
And no matter, and we had this talk. You hear of I'm not trying to take this to a dark turn, but there was an incident in Kansas City with a kid that was 13 years old that took his life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you don't know, and so just having that conversation, and I didn't. They're 10, 11, so I didn't want to fully explain to them, but just letting them know, hey, no matter what you ever do in this world, no matter what, I love you. And I'm proud of you, and you're going to get through it. You know what I mean? So just telling them, I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm here for you. I mean, that's where you have to start.
And I think as a son too, you look back at your dad, and my dad's been gone 7 years, but we just got this new house and we redid it all. There'll be times I walk into certain rooms of the house and be like, man, my dad would he'd be proud of me on this one. So it never stops, even when you're a dad yourself or you're an adult. Like there's something, and I can't speak. I'm sure it's the same with daughters, but just as a son to a dad. And I think I look at that and I kind of instill that in the kids that are around, in our household. And they're like, hey, what does he think? Right. I really want to know what he thinks. And that goes into this hot topic of why affection matters in fatherhood.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Will Cox, I think we'll have you back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I've got my counseling session.
Thank you for sharing your feelings with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I love you and I'm proud of you, Jay.
Right back at you.